Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming to the ACS talk. My name is Majmudar. I'm a freelance application developer using Titanium Mobile. I run the London Titanium user group. I've been playing with cloud, push, and Titanium over the last few years. I just want to share some of my discoveries with push notification across both platforms, Android and iOS. What I've done, I'm going to share the library that I've used, talk a bit about how you get set up if you haven't used push before. Forgive me if I cough, I'll try and turn the microphone if I have to cough, because I'm not 100% well. And I almost didn't make the conference, so my slides are a little bit rough around the edges, but the content is there, and I'll try and get through very quickly so we can look at the code. And if you have questions, then leave them to the end. And then if you want us to afterwards actually go through the code and discuss the project, then you can do that. Okay, so like I said, I run the London Titanium Meetup group. I've been involved from the very beginning, which was May 2011. And then for the first year I was the co-organizer, and then I'm running it now since May last year, 2012. We recently ran an event called Titanium App Camp, which is an unconference and hackathon, which was for all of Europe. And we had people from different parts of Europe come to use Titanium, see what they can create as hacks. I'll speak with Boyd maybe, we can combine it with tiConf and make some event, I don't know. I tweet a lot at Catan, so if you have questions for me later, you can tweet me. I have a GitHub account, Stereo Artist. This project specifically is an open source, I'm releasing all my code as an open source thing. It will be on my GitHub account, Stereo Artist is my GitHub username. And these are some of the apps I've done, Sci-Fi London, Sorry Release, Copy App, and a few other things. So if you want to know more or see some of that work, I can discuss that with you later. But I'll get straight into the reason why you're all here. So I presume now, from Javier's talk, you all know what ACS is. You probably all knew what ACS was anyway. But can I find out how many of you use ACS now? Small percentage. How many are planning on using it? Okay, it's a fair number, so that's good. Okay. Do any of you use push notification now? So I presume that most of you really do want to integrate it and use ACS for integration. So my talk is fine for everybody here then, because I will go through a lot of the process. It's quite, if you've never done the process of push notification setup before, there's lots of little things you have to do. Lots of them. And so I'll take you through all of the processes. So, for a brief, ACS is cloud-based. It does a lot of heavy lifting, happens all associated. You know, hardly went through all of this, really. But the key thing is that it's easy to integrate. It's the big key issue here. And although it does integrate with Titanium Mobile, it's not exclusive to Titanium Mobile, which is crucial for push notification, because you may want to include it in your application, but you might want to have a web interface with a web app or some other third-party system to communicate with your service and still use the same data source. So that's a key benefit bonus to ACS. And also, it's now heavily involved in baked into Titanium Studio. When I started using it, it was just before Accelerator acquired CocoaFish, so I was using the CocoaFish beta, and it was still very good then. So yeah, I'll move on. Here's an example, a working example of the same push notification. Actually, no, they're different ones. But so this is what it looks like on the Android version, and this is how the similar update looks like on my same application with two different notices. But it was the same code base, it was the same application. So these are just the screenshots. But there are things that you can do with push notifications to customize the experience that you're providing to your end users. So you might want to have a custom sound that you professionally recorded, not just a ding or just some generic sound. You want your notice to stand out. So you can do that, and you can send the name of your sound file through your payload. You can make find by break. These are options you can turn on and off. But mainly, it's this alert. This is the whole thing. When the app is in the background, a notice comes up from the either Android servers or Apple servers. And then when you tap on that notification, your app knows. You've all had applications that do that. So, setting up your first push notification project. So, when you set up your application, you'll notice, if you've never used ACS before, you have these production keys and this development key. When you create a new project, Javier's talk, he mentioned there's a checkbox to say automatically create a cloud account. If you don't check that, when you create new projects, uncheck it every time unless you want to use ACS. Otherwise, you'll log in and have all these cloud accounts. You don't need them. You don't need to have all these keys created. Only when you want ACS, check it. It should be the other way around. Maybe just accelerator. But one thing you need to do, once you've got these keys, if you want an Android support in your application, you need to go to the module section, and you will need to hit the plus button, because you need to add a third-party module, which is the cloud push. I'll explain why later. So this is the cloud push. When you click that plus button on the previous slide here, you'll come to this screen. And then you want to select the Android Cloud Push. What that means is, by default, what you have to do is register your device to Apple servers or Android servers to say, this is ready for communicating to via push. Now, Android has its own protocol, Apple has their own protocol. So, I don't know when Accelerator had this API endpoint, you could register your device networks directly with Accelerator's APIs, but not with Android. Accelerator created a module to make that registration process happen. So you have to do something different in your code to have Android support, which is why, although ACS is great and your push is all there, you have to do two completely separate things. Which is why this project that I'm going to be putting out on GitHub is why it's been created. Now, this is the ACS control panel. When you've created an account and you log into myaccelerator.com, you'll see a list of your apps. There is I don't have it, no, I do, but you can't see it. You see a list like this with all the applications that we developed in myaccelerator.com. And there's this manage ACS link will appear if you enable cloud services. When you click on that, you have a whole cloud control panel. There is a push notification section that will have nothing inside it, because you need to configure push within the application via the ACS control panel. Now, when you come through to the settings tab, you have to click on this settings tab to configure it. There's lots of things that can be made easier in this process, but it's still not completely foolproof. You need two sets of certificates. You need Apple iOS push certificates and you need Android push certificates for configuration. Android is easy in this stage. All you have to do is put the app ID in this area and save, and you're done. That's it. Now it's all in the code. It's all about generating a token, setting up a listener for when push notices come through. You're done with that. It's the Apple devices, the iOS devices that it becomes slightly painful. So you need all these certificates. So what does that mean? You need to create an actual certificate. To log into a developer account, you have to create a provisioning profile that's unique. You can't have a wildcard. You then need to configure that certificate. You have to set it up for configuration. And then you need to get your certificate from your Apple system via keychain access. So you go down this route, you check access, request the certificate of authority. Once you've done that, you save it to your hard drive. And then on the screen in the developer.apple.com channel, I have a screen. Because I did all of this for this particular app. So in your provision, you go to so that's the ID I created. Get your codes, request tiACS push, and then you when you enable the push notification service, that's when it asks for the certificate information. So you get the certificate, and then it wants that signing request at that point. Then you have to upload it to Apple's server, and then you get another certificate which you can download. Then you have to install it into your keychain. Then you have to go into your keychain and export it as a P12 certificate, and then you need to upload it into ACS. It's simple, right? So, as I said, after you're on the Apple's website, you have this uploading your certificate. It's creating the certificate for you. It says it's ready, and it offers you to download the certificate. So, in a nutshell, right, you download the visual profile. This kind of covers the whole thing in one slide. It's like, this is the life cycle of an Apple push, if you will, from the developer's point of view. You need to get the profiles, you need to get the certificates, you need to register your device, you need to subscribe to the push in your device on ACS control panel settings, and then you need some form of method to manage all the responses that are polling or non-polling coming through our Apple's business. And it doesn't work with the simulator. So it will just fail because you can't register a device inside the simulator. So what I did is in my script, I check for if the simulator's running, and then I have my test device. I know what the ID is for that application because I've got it in the log, so I'm getting info log output, and then I'm putting that in my script. So whenever it's a simulator, it's just using my test device. So when I send push notices throughout the system, I will get it on my test device. It's just that you can't physically see the push notices on the simulator. Although with Android you can, which is interesting. The Android process, you need to install the Cloud Push module, which I showed earlier in the module setting. And then similarly, you need to separate your code out when you're registering the device token, and then it begins to separate. You can use a single listener for dealing with how the push notices are managed internally within your app. But on the most basic level, it's an alert. Pops up, there's text in it, and then you can cancel and close it. But I want more in my applications than just that. I want to be able to do some clever stuff with the application. I want it to store messages or URLs to fire on, methods in my app to fire on. And so I've been thinking about this, and I'll share some of those ideas with you when we look at the code. So, cover the app ID, callbacks. So, okay, why did I set up this project? Well, I think this workflow is important because ACS to be tagged is very easy. You hit the endpoints and you get stuff back, but push isn't so easy. There are so many other things that you need to do if you want it to be truly cross-platform, mainly because you're dealing with third-party servers and different policies and terms and conditions. So I've basically put this project up and showed live about an hour ago. tiACS push has been in my code, but it's now there. I'll explain a little bit about the project. What I want to see happen with the project is that you have this common.js module, this library, which you can easily use to manage all of your push notifications. But say you have a client and you want to create a solution and then give them their app that's push enabled, then they still have to create the push notifications. They need to send them out. Nowhere in all the documentation is it telling you how to do that. The only way you do that is you log into the ACS control panel. You have a very crude text box. You type things in. There are some buttons and toggles you can turn on and off. But there is nothing. So you then have to create another application or a web application for your client to use. So I want this project to be very within the generic, simple app that's not just the client code, but the mobile app code, but also the controller application, which you can hand out, grab, do whatever you want to hand to your clients. So it's two applications. This you manage the actual creation of the push notices, and it pushes to a server. They have to log in with the correct administration privileges. And then I think the whole community use this type of application. It remains generic and everybody gets involved. I think it will have never mileage and it's a reference point. Maybe there will be some code perhaps already in release later, but I only have the client code at the moment. I don't have the application. But what I will release after today is all of my, I have this workflow charts of how all the methods in the library are working. I also have some mockups for the client that the administrator control applications. So I'll share all of that, all those resources will be shared so anybody wants to use them. It will be, if anybody wants to contribute to the project, then all the requests will always be all the welcome. I want to keep that out there and try and make it evolve. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this project requires push button 4. I was halfway through a sentence and I think I got distracted by lunch or something, I'm not sure. But I was working on a project for a client and he said, I want push notification in my app, but I don't want any login. I don't want the user to have to say, here's my username, here's my password. I don't want to have any encryption function, so they can use the app regardless. Now, you need an account at ACS for anything to happen. To receive push, to register as, to receive pushes on certain channels, you need an account. So, how do you do that? Various people have tried very different types of anonymous, creating random strings and using them as usernames and then registering. I've done something similar. But I thought, hey, wait a second. You're getting a very unique ID, which is the device token from Apple and from Android, from Google, right? And this is specific to your application, your app ID, and the instance of your device. So there you have, you've got your Google ID. You don't have to do any extra processing. You've got a username that's completely unique. So just hash that up. That's the password. Just register yourself at the beginning of your bootloader. You have the devices in all intents and purposes, being an entity, a user on ACS. So that's what I put into the library. But the idea is that there are these functions in ACS that allow you to check whether you're logged in. There's a caching process. If you logged into ACS and then you quit your app, you load it up again, you're still logged into ACS. So I created a workflow that allows you to say, it checks if you're logged in, and if it is, it doesn't have to do anything, you're all ready to go. If not, it checks whether you have an existing account. If you don't, it creates an account. If you do, then it just logs you in, because it's storing your user data, that device token information into the system memory, and it stores properties within the application. And I will talk about this complex push list a bit after we've built in some code. So, okay, I'll show you some of this. I presume everybody's using common.js. Yes? So the code is very messy. There's lots of comments and things that shouldn't be there because it's about 500 lines of code to manage the whole process. So I'm using prototypes. And I've got all these methods for returning device tokens, storing device tokens, process to get device tokens. There's a whole series of stuff. This is an interesting section for the message callback. This is where all the magic happens. This is where this alert time, that is what happens. When your payload from that ACS comes through, it's passed through from the ACS system, goes on to Apple servers, Apple servers says, yes, there's a certificate, it's validated, your device, everyone that's subscribed or sold distributes that to all the devices. And when it comes down to your device, it's in the background, it's an alert based upon user preferences. But then when your app has focus, this triggers. And that's that tiny bit of code, that's kind of the end result of all this thousand things that you have to do. But it's really basic, and you don't have to just do that. There's no reason why you couldn't do some more intelligent things with push notices. It doesn't have to just be an alert box. One of the things that I was thinking about specifically is how you create more complex payloads within 260 character limit, and that's 256. But let me just reiterate, there's one big issue you need to know about. When you send a push notice, this is the push notice screen inside ACS. So they allow you to have a maximum 120 character alert message, which shows the badges. You will see the little number badges. You can configure what the value is and send that through. Whether you have sound files, or you just need a negative file.
In terms of sound, Word MP3 or?
I think it's WAV files.
Okay.
It's a WAV file that needs to be in a specific directory. Assets. I'll put it in those in the code in the library. Whether to vibrate for Android only, true or false, but there's no reason why you can make the iPhone version vibrate as well. Just and then Android has a title and an icon they can use because they have the activity control at the top where it has a standard Android icon. It could be your app icon or something specific. But then that's the basic interface. There's also an advanced tab here. And this is what I always use, is this. It's a nice big interface. And you just put JSON in there and you create a payload with the alert node, and what the alert is, if you want a badge, and if you want sound, if you don't want it, you just omit it. And then you just send a push notice to your devices. So I was thinking the administrator application would be, you would have a box like this, but then you would have how many characters you have remaining. You might have several functions. But there's no reason why you couldn't go and just hash down a big JSON string and send the whole JSON payload within the JSON payload, and then extract it and do some interesting stuff with that inside your application. So if I can bake that into the library, that's an option for sophisticated controls of the actual data coming through, and to just simple simplicity messages. But yes, so the channels, does everybody understand the idea about channels as well? Push. Everybody? One person? Everybody else? Channels? So when you create the push notification system, you can create push channels. And then when you register a user, an ACS user, to push notification, you subscribe them to channels. So by default, I always create an all channel or a general channel, which is like broadcast across your application. But you might want to create Android channels, iOS channels, and then have them also subscribe to those channels. Obviously, you always need to have controls in your application that allow you to turn notices on or off. it's more apparent on Apple because you get a big alert saying, do you want to subscribe to push notices? And you can go into the controls and turn them on and off. Android, you have to put the controls in yourself, more or less. So you could create new channels that may be relative to one type of activity within your application, so that when you targeted those types of messages, the people that aren't interested aren't going to get them. Because they do get upset when you get general push notices that are completely irrelevant to them, and you might lose them as a user of your app. Even if your app is good, it tends to be quite frustrating. So, you can also send pushes directly from user to user if you know the user IDs. So now you can create gaming systems where you're sending push notices. If you've got friends, and ACS has all of that baked in, where you can create friends of one user to another, then you can have your host and number send push notice to user such and such. And if they're friends, they'll get a direct message. But then you can get into all kinds of complex territory. Right, so we'll go back to code. So let me just put this app.js file because that doesn't make much sense to me. So this is my app.js example file. Obviously I'm requiring my module, the ACS push help. It was emitting the .js when you use the .js. So now I've got my objects in the ACS small ph. Objects, at the end of the day, my ACS object is all ready to run with the ACS library, the push library I've got. And the first thing what's happening is it's just running this method, show loaded user. And show loaded user is just thinking it's cached. And if it is, your app just carries on running. It doesn't have to do anything. It's normal, the whole process. But if you haven't, it launches this callback with get device token. And there's a whole nested suite of processes that this script runs through. So if you haven't got a device token before, it's going to check the servers of your device, get the device token, and store it locally. And then it's going to try and log you in. Because you may well have logged in if you're existing on the system. You'll just get automatically logged into ACS. You then have this login callback. Here you see if you're logged into ACS or not. It queries, there's this functional query using this user. It might be easier if I show you something. So for that, for example, it's checking if you're logged in into ACS. If not, it runs this ACS query, or the simulator, or hardcode device token view. If you're not the simulator, it sets the username as the device token property, you've stored it, then it does a query against that token, because that token is your username, and then if not, it creates a new user. It sets the flag at that point to say, yeah, this new user needs to be created or not, then the callback is triggered. It moves on to the next method in that chain. Like 6 things in the chain. All of these workflow charts I will publish into GitHub as well, so these will be available. So each key methods will understand the process of the flow, the logic is behind it. Yeah, there are these functions, the cloud functions, that show me that's the very first thing that I run. And if you're logged in, that's great. You don't have to. Some scripts I've seen try to create an account or try to do login and then use error handling. If there's an error, then it goes, okay, you've already got an account, use that, then it does something. There's no point, just do that, check it. there might be easier ways of doing it, but I think it's best. And there's all this stuff that I think this is the get device process. So it's checking if you're Android, and I'll show you this code because that's quite interesting. It watches the add push module and then retrieves the device token. If not, it uses the titanium API and then API to register the push notifications, and then it sets up that callback, and then it runs the callback and passes to it. So here's the code, right? So I'm checking if it's Android. So it's checking if it's Android, and then it's checking if the simulators there, and so it's just going back to carry on because we're going down. But otherwise, if it's not Android, then it's using the TI register for push notifications, and you need to set the types of push notices information that you want Apple to provide. Whether you want badges, whether you want alerts, whether you want sounds, you need to specify this at registration. And then you're setting up the callbacks for handling the actual device. Otherwise, you're using the cloud push.retrieve device token. And that's it. It's right. It is really simple, and there's more complex things you can do with Android, because Android's push notification systems are a lot more detailed and more complex than what you can do with it. But that's a whole suite of other things to do if you want to do that. And then it's hard to see this message callback, as I said, is where it's checking its payloads. And what happens, you saw that box earlier on where it was the big JSON load with the buttons to, if you want to send a sound or a migrate. When you get this payload through from the servers, and that payload comes in as data, and then you need to pass that data through. And you have the data that's been sent through. It's really messy. The only thing is badges, it's not very easy to manage badges unless you've got some sort of persistent store or somebody's read message or not read message. You can set a badge value to 1,000, 100, 5, or 2, 3, it doesn't matter. That value will show when you send the push. So the application Titanium Mobile, you can do badges already by just firing that API at the time, like iPhone that badge. Get the iPhone badge system, and it will just show in your app. So you don't have to use it for push notifications if you use something that's in your app. But if you wanted it to manage for push notices that you had read or had not acted upon, you might have a message come through, and you then want to store that message so you have a history of all the messages that have come through, and they might be 3 or 4 actions to a single message. And then that can be managed by a badge. That's a completely different library. That's a completely different set of code to manage that, which I'd like to put in library into this and stuff. But yeah, like I said, you just run the library and you can't do anything with if you want to do it. Let's just have to run the closed library. I'll show you an example. I've got a nice little screen there. So let's run this in there. And I'll run through all of those. Pretty much all of those long statement is mirrored what's happening in the workflows charts that I showed you, and mirrored the app.js file. So it just showed you the process that was going through, and tell you if you logged in, you logged in before, whether you can be created or not. And it's a bit crude, this extra code involved in that there, but it's useful to know that your application is doing following the right workflow. Now, as this device automatically registers it as a device, it's not a user. So if you want to associate someone's email address and you want to use this script in that, you have to modify it slightly. I think the next thing I'll do is just create a way of updating that user with that long device token string, and then replacing it with their own username. So it's still in the system, you don't have to change it. They're custom tailored to that login into themselves. They authenticated themselves. So, right. I don't think I've got nothing shows on the screen at the moment. It's just all just communicating with the ACS system. It's just logging out here. There's no problem really. I never needed to have all that stuff being out on the screen. As long as I know that ACS has it, what I'll do is I'll log into the ACS control panel and show you the user account created. So the GitHub account, if you're all GitHub accounts, I've got 5 accounts, I think that's 5 GitHub accounts. Okay, well if you want to walk the code around, I'll tweet out the URL. Well, you can put you've got something for GitHub. Are you listing slides?
Yeah, all the slides and videos are listed on that app, and I'll email everyone for a meeting.
Alright. So okay, it's now, right? So it's gone to show the logged in user. It wasn't logged in, so it went to get the device token, realised it was in the simulator. It said, well, not all logged into ACS, so then we queried the username, so we don't know how it is. So then it said, well, you're a simulator, so we're going to give you the predefined token. It said, oh, I have that predefined token stored in ACS, I've already done that before, so we just need to log you in. And it's logged you in, so well, you're not actually logged in already, so then it does the login process. And so right now, I'm logged into ACS. So if that was on my phone, I'm now ready to receive push notices if I went in. I had that app, just that, somewhere to do. I pushed it to the device, and then I went into the control panel and then sent a push notice signature in my app. I'll try and do that. Come and see it afterwards if you want to see that. Try and do that. That is kind of about it. I'm sorry it's not more. It's probably complex enough. I'm going to, ask questions.
Just to make sure I understand the implementation of the iOS simulator. So you can do all the interaction from the simulator, but then when you actually send a push notification, or do something in the iOS simulator app that triggers a push notification, get that on your actual device. Or do you have to run the app?
I get it on my device because on my device, I push that test app. The very same app I'm testing the simulator on. I push it to my device, and then I plug my device into the laptop, and I look at the extract. I'm looking at the console logs, and I look at my device token. I copy the device token, and I paste it into like an area in the library, which is my predefined token. So now,
Once you do that,
once I do that, then yeah, then whenever you push stuff in, it's coming through.
So you can also continue to debug on the single level after you get the push, right? So you get the push, you get the message on the device, and you still continue to debug on the device, not on the single level, right?
No, you can't see it on subject.
So I was thinking if you find something,
No.
so trigger the flow notification.
No, but on the Android simulator, you're running that the emulator of Android, and you send a push notice through, it pops up on your emulator.
I have a question. What's cloud push uses behind the scene? You use Google Cloud Messaging or some other cloud technologies?
I have to speak to Michael or ACS about that. I imagine it goes directly through to Google systems. They probably got it set up. I imagine they may have something. Yeah.
The user uninstalls the application or disables push notifications. How ACS actually removes that user from ACS?
It doesn't remove the user. There's a state for subscribe to push in ACS, so that user is either subscribed or not. So one of my apps, I was talking about the setting which allows me to just say turn push on, turn push on. And all that does is send a flag to say that user subscribe or not. And that's separate to the channel's subscription. Any questions? Yeah.
How do you send the server message? Is there an API for ACS?
ACS is built into the Titanium mobile SDK, so when you come. So I've got a question.
Server side event, you want to see?
Oh, I see. Okay, well then, ACS isn't dependent upon Titanium mobile. You can create like a PHP app or any other language to talk to ACS. You just need to create that login. They have APIs for different languages. So if you go to the ACS documentation, you will find a suite of libraries in different languages that are all used, but it's generic. They have kernel. So the kernel wants to log in and push systems from servers to theirs, which is what we're saying about it. Yeah.
Do you find this easier than like early version? What's your opinion?
Well, I looked at Urban Nation's documentation to get the right first time to set it up, but it was really easy to set up. Obviously, like a certificate thing was I never implemented Urban Nation, so I can't really compare. Like it says, I think it was really easy. The only thing is when you want to do cross-platform and you want to manage that, as regularly with certain processes, which is why I developed this manual. But I found it fairly straightforward to use. The only thing I want to manage is that I used emoji in my, you saw in that early slide, there was a little alien head on the Sci-Fi Festival, and that was great, it's a lot of fun if you have that on the device. On an Android device, you just get a nice little square box with something in it. So, I'd like the client controller to be able to say, well, yeah, you have an emoji, put it in, but then you don't want to have that go to the Android image. So, it has to sense these things, and what are the limitations of each platform, and be able to control the delivery of messages. That's what I have. So, unless there are any more questions, You can come see me afterwards if you want. As I said earlier, I ran a titanium app can. I've got some t-shirts from the titanium app can. Want to grab one, you can. One's reserved. If there's no questions, come see me later if you want to look at more of the code in depth. We can talk to develop here.
I heard a lot people complain about the speed or the lack of sending push notifications over ACS.
I haven't. It's only one time there was a significant delay that I used it at the festival, so I got on the festival last year, and we were getting push notices through really quick. We were sending 2-for-1 offers, screenings during the times, new screenings being added to the festival over a 10-day period, and things were coming through quick. We had big, 40-60-40 split between and everybody loved it. Getting these messages. So in the real world setting, you've got something that's dynamic, you want to quickly just send something through. That's right. Right, so I'm going to wrap that up there. Thanks very much for listening.